So you bought yourself a small power station, like my Bluetti Elite 30 V2 that I recently reviewed. And at the time, you were pretty sure this was going to meet all of your energy needs. And while you've discovered it's a very capable device, it still doesn't have the run times that you were hoping for. Well, what are your options? Now, you could purchase another power station, larger, more powerful, longer run times, and of course, at a greater cost. But another option might be to consider purchasing a 12-volt lithium iron phosphate battery like this one, the B1210 from Bluetti, to extend the run times of your smaller power station. If you're interested in seeing how that works, keep watching. Before I demonstrate how you might hook up a 12-volt lithium iron phosphate battery like the Bluetti B1210 to another power station to extend its run times, I first want to go through a few details, and let's start with going through what you get when you receive your battery. Of course, like all other Bluetti products, you are going to receive a manual and warranty card. Of course, that's a 5-year warranty, standard for all of Bluetti's products now. You're going to get a few other devices or bits and pieces that are going to help you hook up to other devices. One, in this bag, there is a collection of bolts. They're all the same diameters, but they are longer, depending on how many wires you want to hook up to the two terminals. There are terminal covers. These are a silicone cover that will cover over the terminal once you get your devices hooked up to it. And another kind of cable, which is kind of unique. I have not seen this with other 12-volt batteries. This is an Ethernet cable. And the Ethernet cable allows you to attach your B1210 to a complete system that will allow it to communicate back and forth for most efficiency. And I'll quickly demonstrate how you might do that. Now, there is another device you'll have to purchase if you want to make a complete system out of this battery. But when you have the other components to it, you'll use the Ethernet cable first. Right through here, this is an Ethernet port, and that allows you to link the other devices in. And on this side is a complementary one that allows the communications to go forward out of it. All right, now as far as the key features and what makes this of interest, especially to me, is what it's intended use for. If you look at the front of the battery, you'll see it referred to as a trolling motor. And a lot of 12-volt batteries are in fact used for small trolling motors for fishing, and this one can be used for that as well. I'll tell you what it's not first. What it is not is a battery that you would use to run a motor vehicle, truck, or large boat engine. This is not a startup battery. This is a battery meant to provide you off-grid power. So it could be used in a marine setting. So this could be used on board a sailboat or any other boat for that matter to provide energy for all your power needs there. It can be used in an RV. It could be used in an off-grid power setup for a cabin. Wherever you want to have off-grid power, batteries like this one, specifically the B1210 from Bluetti, will serve very well. Now, because it is intended as a marine battery first, hence the name again, trolling motor, it has an IP65 waterproof rating. That's really quite good. I'm actually very happy with that, because you never know when you might, even if you're not on board a boat, when you might expose this to the rain. So it is rainproof. Now, it's not submersion proof, but it is rainproof. So that's a really good feature for this. Now, the two features that I am most pleased that the Bluetti came with is first and foremost a self-heating technology. So as temperatures drop, this might be great for RVing, marine, and off-grid. As temperatures drop, the battery can sense the external temperature and start to heat itself with internal heating elements. So it can run down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit, which would be -20 degrees Celsius, and still maintain an efficient operation. So that in itself was a key features to me, because, of course, one of my intended uses for this is to use it with a diesel heater and maybe some hot tent camping in combination, which of course would occur during the winter time. The other thing that this has, which was especially important, it's great to see these two things in combination, is that the B1210 is Bluetooth enabled. So with the app, the Bluetti app on my phone, I'm able to monitor in real time the status of my battery and know exactly what the percentage of power is in the battery, what is going in, and what is going out. out. So it's just like looking at the display on any of the Bluetti power stations. Other batteries that I have tested don't offer that as a feature. Yes, other batteries do have them, but none of the ones that I've tested. And that has been a bit of a criticism that I have leveled against other batteries is if you're trying to judge just how much power, what percentage of fullness your battery is, you have to estimate. And that estimation is by taking a voltage reading off of the terminals and then calculating from that the rough estimate of what's inside. It's not nearly as accurate as you might hope it is. So the Bluetooth app is exceptionally welcome in my case at least. Now, another key feature of this is that they are expandable. You can bring a number of batteries into play. If you want to hook them up in series, you can hook up 4 of them. You can hook up as many as 24 in parallel. And there's case uses for doing it either way. Now, the other thing is, as I already mentioned, this does support integration with other devices in a complete system through the ether cable ports, either way you want to look at it. Now, I will give you the physical parameters for this, but I think I'll just leave them in the video description for you to read. The big one is the weight, of course, and they are a bit heavy, just over 24 pounds for this battery right here. Now, I just want to go look at, for a moment, a few of the external features and what, of course, would be similar with other batteries, but what also is a bit different. So to start with, compared with the other batteries that I've tested, the terminals are just posts that allow you to screw and bolt on whatever wire or other device you're going to be using. Just a little bit different, not the usual ones that would screw downwards into the battery. And of course, I've already mentioned the 2 Ethernet ports, that's it, Ethernet ports. Another little small device is an overpressure valve release right here. I haven't seen that on other devices. Honestly, I don't know when that would ever come into play, but it is an extra safety feature that Bluetti has included on their batteries, so I think that's important as well. Now, this battery specifically is a 100 amp hour battery and is rated at, 12.8 volts. And if you do the math, that's going to give you 1234, I think I've got my math right, watt hours. Now, that little Bluetti Elite 30 that I showed you a minute ago is only rated at 288 watt hours of capacity. So by adding the battery like this one, you will be not just doubling, tripling, or quadrupling, you'll actually have 5 times the capacity at your request or at your disposal to use for running devices longer. So that's the key feature. Now, physically on the outside of this is just a few features that I found kind of interesting. Let me just lean this forward for a second. I want you to see the top of it. Can you see the protrusions on all 4 corners? Does that remind you of Lego? I know it did me when I first saw it. And if you look at the bottom of this as well, you're going to see depressions that will match those 4 protrusions. And what that allows is for you to stack batteries together in relative safety so they're not going to fall off of each other. In a static situation, it may not make a big difference. On board a boat or in an RV, it could make a difference where they might get jostled around. The battery is also designed to allow you to use a strap to come up over the top and have it in the proper carrier plate so you can pull it down secure so it's not going to fall off as well. There are no external handles on this, not unlike a lot of the Bluettis. They're actually an indentation on the 2 sides. Again, keeping the profile of the battery just nice. All right, now I've talked enough about the battery. Just before we get to the demonstration, I do have to mention that there are a few things you're going to need to go with this in order to make it worse. Now, first and foremost, you're going to need to be able to charge this battery up. Now, you can charge it with solar panels. You can charge it, I suppose you could charge this directly from another power station if you wanted to, but the most efficient way to charge this is with a wall charging unit, something like you might use for older power stations, but it has to be specific to lithium iron phosphate batteries. And I have one from another company. This is a 20 amp hour or 20 amp 12-volt iron phosphate battery charging system. So you would plug this into the wall, and then you would attach it to the battery through another cable connection, and you would charge it up. I'll tell you right now, 20 amps is slow. It's not a fast charge. It takes a couple of hours to do this, to charge this battery up from zero. I will also tell you, though, that this battery is capable of receiving up to 100 amps of charging power, and that will greatly reduce the amount of time it takes to charge it up from zero. Recommended, though, is maximum around 50. So while you can charge these really quickly, it's kind of like turbocharge on the other power stations. You can use it, it's just not recommended that you use it very often. Better to go with the default standard kind of charging rate of 50 amps. So take that into consideration when you're going to purchase a battery like this, that you will have to find a charger to charge it up with. Now, in order to hook this up to my power station, I need two more things, which I'll be hooking up off camera. First and foremost, you're going to need an output port. So this is the 12-volt auto output port with the two connections on the end, the positive and the negative, and it's also a fused unit right here. I'll connect that up in a moment so that the battery is ready to go. And of course, the other thing you're going to need is a charging cable for your power station. So this is actually the auto charging cable that came with my Elite 30 V2, and I'll just be able to plug this into the auto port. It has the XT60 connection on the other end, and that will plug into where any DC input is going into the small power station, like a solar panel. So this is just another DC energy port that will work with it. All right, now let's set it up and I'll show you how this works. Now, just before we get to the demonstration, I do want to talk about some of the limitations a setup like this will have. This is not a panacea for all of your energy needs. There are a few things that you have to be aware of. First off, when you hook up your 12-volt battery to a power station, large or small for that matter, you're limited by the amount of power this will deliver at a time. You'll only get about 100-watt delivery into the other power station. Now, what that means is that if your energy draw off your primary power station is greater than 100 watts, it's going to wear down the battery, not wear down, but drain the battery in your power station faster than this battery can recharge it. It's not truly an expansion battery. An expansion battery would mean that when the power station is hooked up to another power source like a battery, but one that is designed for doing this, they will actually act as if this is a part of the original power station and be able to draw on it to its full capacity. So again, there is a limitation. You can only, with a 12-volt 100 amp, you can only deliver 100 watts on average to the power station. So you do have to choose what it is you're trying to run off your power station. So make sure it is below or around the 100 watt level. So the demonstration I'm going to be doing is with my IceCo 12-volt refrigerator, which I know draws about 65 watts when it's actually running. So this will, in fact, charge my small power station faster than the IceCo can drain it. So that's just something to consider, and that's the reason I chose that as a demonstration. All right, so what I'll do now is I'll set this up with the IceCo, show you it in operation, and then the difference when you add the 12-volt battery into the system. So I have the Elite 30 V2 and the B1210 sitting on top of my IceCo 12-volt refrigerator. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see both the power station, the battery, as well as the controls of the IceCo when I plug it in to show you that, in fact, it's operating. But that's okay, because what you will see is the power draw that the IceCo will place on the small power station once it gets started. So let's start by turning on the power station. It's shown me that we have 86% of full capacity. Turn on the DC port, plug in the power cord extension, the auto extension for the refrigerator. I see the refrigerator powering up. Now, it does take a moment or two before the power station recognizes the refrigerator, and the compressor has to trip and start running before you start to see a power draw. I can probably speed that up a little bit by taking the temperature down a little bit further. All right, so I can hear the compressor starting up on the refrigerator. That's the nice thing about this ice cold. They're so quiet. And what you can see right over here is the power draw by the refrigerator on the battery. So it's running between 64, 65 watts going out of the power station to run the refrigerator. It's also telling me, the power station that is that I have 3.8 hours of runtime left on this small power station. Now, that's not actually the case. What it is that's how much time I would have left if the compressor for the refrigerator was running constantly. Of course, that's not how refrigerators work. They will run until the temperature reaches the set point. The compressor then turns off and remains off until such a point that some of the cold is lost from the refrigerator, drops below the set point, or drops above the set point, I should say. And then, of course, it trips the refrigerator, the compressor again. Let's see, it displays time and out. So the other thing is that it usually draws a bit more power when it first starts running, the compressor that is, and then it settles down. So now I can see that it's running between 43 and 44 watts. The truth is that if this were full, I could probably get 6 or 8 hours of runtime on this refrigerator. And while that sounds great, that's just one night. You're going to have backup power source, especially during a hot summer, to keep this running for any length of time. All right, so that's what this is all about. So now we're going to hook up the Bluetti battery to the power station to extend its run times. So there is one feature about the battery that I failed to mention earlier, which is kind of unique again, and that is it has an on-off switch of its own. So right over here, I wonder if I can tip it forward so that you can see this small silicone button. If I press that, you can see it turns green. That means that the battery itself is now turned on. So I have my 12-volt auto port tapped into it, plug the extension or the charging cable for the power station, bring that over, plug it into the XD60 port. And once again, there's always a bit of a delay between when the power station recognizes the battery and then starts to display the input power. So we'll just wait on that for a second. There we go. Okay, so now the power is going into the power station from the battery, and it's showing 101, 102 watts going in, and that's about what I expected to see. That's the same as you would get if you were to plug this into your car while you were driving to another location, about 100 to 102 watts. So in fact, what will happen is pretty soon, well, it'll take a little bit of time, of course, a couple of hours, this power station will become fully charged and will remain charged as long as there's power left in the larger battery, and will continue to run the fridge for a long period of time. In fact, I estimate now we're looking at 24, 36 hours of runtime with this 12-volt battery. So that's just a rough estimate. Conditions will vary, depends on how hot it is, how often you open the refrigerator, and the likes. All right, one more time, we'll just get a close in on the display so you can see what's taking place. Now, let's wrap this video up. We're going to close this video with just a couple of more comments on how you might use a 12-volt, and in this case, the lithium iron phosphate battery from Bluetti, the B1210, to enhance the runtime of another power station. Specifically, the one for this demonstration is the Bluetti Elite 30 V2. So as mentioned prior to going to the demonstration, there are a few limitations in doing so. First off, and probably the largest limitation, of course, is the fact that the battery itself, being a 12-volt battery, will only deliver probably around 100 watts, as you saw in the demonstration. So if you have chosen a product that you need to power that draws greater than 100 watts, you will not be able to keep the small power station charged up as quickly as this will be able to do so. Having said that, there is ways around it. You can hook up more batteries in the system so that you can double the amount of voltage being delivered. So 24 volts may be delivered from the two batteries together into your power station will mean 200 watts in power delivery. Now, you do have to be sure that the small power station is capable of taking that. This power station, being quite a small one, is only capable of taking up to 28 volts. So two of these could still run the small power station, or at least run it, charge it faster. And the alternate is two more batteries could be set up so it doesn't necessarily charge it faster, just runs it longer. So it's either parallel or series, depending on how you want to hook them up. So I just want to throw that out there, but that of course is beyond the scope of this video on how you might do that. Now, the other thing of course is that your battery is capable of delivering 12 volt directly, so you could run your refrigerator, like my ice cold, directly off of this battery. You don't have to have a power station to route it through. That works well because, of course, the refrigerator is only drawing, I think it was around 60, 65 watts. So you can do that. But then you wouldn't be able to charge up other devices like your cell phones and the like, and you wouldn't be able to run any AC current devices like you can off a small power station. So really, it's in combination where these two things are at their best. And again, you can use this with larger power stations if that's the way you want to go, again, to extend the run times. All right, I'm going to give you all the specifications for the Bluetti B1210 in the video description. I will also link my review of the Bluetti Elite 30 V2 in the video description at the end of the video. I would encourage you, if you have any comments or questions, put them in the comments section. But until next time, get out and explore and take that path less traveled, because it will make all the difference. Bye for now.